Everyone, and welcome to DeFiSummit's Decentralized Exchange and Cross-Chain Trading panel. Today, I have a very special guests that are going to be on here today. We have Mathias, or Mathias from OpenOcean. I have Ayush Jain from ZeroSwap, and I also have Alex Wern from IDEX. Hi, guys. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for pleasure to be here.
Yeah, nice to be here.
Wonderful. And before we kind of get started, we kind of want to do a little bit of a brief introduction to kind of let the audience understand what you guys are doing within the space and also a little bit more about your platforms as well. Mathias, if you want to start first.
Sure. My name is Mathias. I'm from OpenOcean. A bit about myself. I started in crypto around 2015 and then been doing consulting around blockchain and crypto, help build up some of the major top-tier protocols from design to architecture, tokenomics. Most recently helped a project in Japan build up a digital identity chain for local business and for regional governments. And I'm with OpenOcean now, where we are doing a full aggregation protocol for one-stop trading across DeFi and CeFi. So basically, we help you source liquidity and get the best prices with low slippage across decentralized and centralized exchanges. So we can help you split the route, for example. That means instead of going to one single liquidity pool or one single DEX, we can offer a better price by going out and executing that trades on different exchanges. We also very recently finished up our cross-chain swap protocol. So you will soon be able to switch or swap assets across different public chains and different trading pairs.
Excellent. Welcome to the stage.
Thanks.
Also, next on is going to be Ayushi from ZeroSwap. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about ZeroSwap.
Yeah. So hi, everyone. I'm Ayushi. So I started my crypto journey in 2017. I was introduced by one of the clients I was serving as a freelancer about Bitcoin. Since then, I worked for various startups based in India. I worked for CoinSwitch. Then I worked for Frontier. I worked with Instadap very closely. Then Soumya and Samyak were incubating. And since then, I've been like traveling to various conferences, attended, I think, almost all the hackathons all over the globe. So I personally believe in this space because I think I myself have learned a lot about personal finances and how finances all across the globe work. That's one of the major reasons that I believe in DeFi, and anybody who enter into crypto space understands first how finance works all over the world. About ZeroSwap, so I've been thinking a lot in terms of what should I be building and what the users actually need in this industry, and I somehow understand that there's a need of decentralization and the boom will come. Now, what ZeroSwap is basically building is we are an aggregator. We're an aggregator of multi-chains. So consider there's Uniswap, there's Pancake, so you can access both at one place. And it's like switching network on MetaMask. So you can switch over Reef, Elrond, Ethereum, Polygon, PancakeSwap. You can access all of that, all the liquidity at one place. And the other thing is that it's gasless. And now how we're solving the gas cost is, so I've always been thinking that when an end user swap a card, a Visa card or MasterCard, you never think of paying any fee, right? But it's the opposite. So I think DeFi protocols can do some balancing in terms of from where they earn money and how they spend money, similar to how Amazon does. So what they do is their e-commerce business is at no profit, no loss, but AWS is giving them a lot of money, right? So this is how ZeroSwap is trying to solve the problem of gas cost, where we'll figure out a way where we have other revenue models, and then we'll keep spending on gas costs from our side.
Excellent. Also, welcome to the stage, Alex, as well from IDEX. Hey, Alex, can you kind of give a little bit of introduction about yourself and what IDEX is?
Absolutely. Hey, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Alex Wern. I'm the co-founder and CEO of IDEX. I bought my first Bitcoin in 2012 from an exchange called CoinFloor in the US. It almost went insolvent at one point. Their bank account got shut down. I was shocked that they refunded the cash that I still had on the platform, but it was an obvious example of some of the custody risks that can exist in this space. And there's been no shortage of even more dramatic events in the years to come. So when Ethereum was announced, one of the initial ideas that everyone was excited about was this concept of decentralized exchanges using smart contracts to custody funds and settle trades rather than relying on third parties to maintain control. So we kind of jumped headfirst into that design space, and we have a product that we call, it's IDEX. We consider it a hybrid decentralized exchange. So there's been a lot of development in the DEX space, in particular the rise of things like AMMs, which make it easy for users to provide liquidity, but they have a trading interface that doesn't meet the needs of a lot of traders. It's a swap-only interface. You can think of it as simply the only option is a market order, and there's a lot of problems with slippage and front running, et cetera. So we're working to combine the best of centralized and decentralized exchanges by using smart contracts for custody and settlement, but an off-chain matching engine to make sure that you get the performance, throughput, and feature set of a centralized exchange combined with the security of a DEX. We'll be releasing in a couple of months a new feature that will integrate automated market makers into this design, allowing users to deposit and become liquidity providers within this exchange architecture without having to actually run any market making bots themselves. So we're pretty excited about that because it's going to allow users to trade against an AMM or provide liquidity as an AMM, but within an environment that's more familiar and performant a la existing centralized exchanges.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. They're interesting topics that you guys are building on, and I kind of wanted to jump back to Mathias to kind of go over kind of like what you said earlier, that it was like basically centralized exchange and decentralized exchange, and then having like the lowest slippage. Like, how do you guys kind of like route the, I would say, the order flow, or how do you guys actually perform that with OpenOcean?
Sure. Well, that's kind of our whole value proposition and why we exist, right? You have a lot of exchanges out there, and they have different liquidity pools, and some of them have a lot, some of them don't have a lot. So when you want to do a trade, you might experience a lot of slippage, especially if you want to do a large trade, right? Because that's the law, for instance, the AMM pools. So what we do is that we have an intelligent routing algorithm, and we have, which is continuously being trained by machine learning that's collecting data to optimize it. So that one is kind of our proprietary black box magic we have there. And then along with our public contracts, which exist on all the chains we aggregate. So currently that's Binance Smart Chain, it's Ethereum, Tron, Solana, Polygon is soon to come. And then the algorithm will go out to the contracts and search for all the prices on the DEXs and then collect them and then calculate the most efficient route to do your trade. And that will essentially help you access all the liquidity and get the best prices. And then you can eventually benefit from that. So that's like one of the propositions we do. And then we also do it across chains, so cross-chain swaps soon. And we are working on integrating and aggregating more sophisticated products such as lending, insurance, and other ones.
How did you guys were able to? So I know for cross-chain trading, let's say, for example, if you're aggregating from like Ethereum to like, let's say, a faster blockchain like Solana, how does that work? Like, how does it work? Like, how does it calculate kind of like the gas fees and kind of how the order would route? Would it route to, let's say, like 50% to Solana, 50% to Ethereum, or kind of like how would that work?
So actually the cross one is more like if you want to swap between different chains, right? So you, for example, want to start on Ethereum with maybe Ethereum token, and then go via a cross-chain protocol and end up on another public chain, which might be Binance Smart Chain, and then the destination token might be something else like DAI or BNB and so on. So here, what our algorithm do is that it helps you with the swap, and the swap can either be executed on the chain you initiated from, which is Ethereum in this case, or it can be executed on Binance Smart Chain. and then this will be intermediated by a cross-chain protocol. For example, Matic, if you want to go from Ethereum to layer 2, or could be Poly network if you want to go from Ethereum to Binance Smart Chain.
Excellent. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And then also another kind of like another topic that Ayushi pointed out as well is like they have gasless transactions. So how do you integrate those gasless transactions and using multi-chain too? Notice that you guys are building on Elrond, Binance Smart Chain, and a few other ones as well.
Well, so for our platform, we charge the gas fees, right? We don't charge any fees for OpenOcean. The function is free to use. So once you search the price and you execute the swap, you will have to pay the gas fees yourself. We don't use a gas token. We are doing research how to go about gas fees and have been trying to explore meta transactions and other concepts. But for now, we just simply charge the gas fees, and then you will be able to weigh that up against going into a particular DEX and doing the swap, for example. And we still see better prices and lower slippage, even though you have to weigh out the potentially higher gas fee.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I got maybe a quick kind of observation or comment. So one of the things that I noticed that's very different in crypto versus traditional finance is every exchange is also managing custody, which is an unusual kind of arrangement. In traditional finance, you have these things called prime brokers where most people have their funds and relationships, and those prime brokers essentially allow you to tap into any other exchange in the network of exchanges that you can trade on. There's no such thing as, oh, I've got my funds at NYSE and I can't get them over to NASDAQ because the block times or the exchange, the transaction fee is really high because everyone's trying to get a Bitcoin transaction through. So it's a very different challenge to solve in crypto, where there's a lot of these different networks that maybe have different consensus mechanisms, don't natively communicate with one another, and you've got this fragmented liquidity, both in terms of venues, but also literally in terms of the networks in which these pools of liquidity exist on. So I think that's something in general that is a challenge for the exchange space, but in particular the DEX space, where you see a lot of this in discussions around MEV in Ethereum, if you've heard this term, minor extractable value. The basic idea is that even if you submit a transaction on chain, no one's going to give you credit for it until the miners have actually picked it up. And there's, it kind of goes back to this fragmentation where you need to be able to try to prioritize transactions or segment them from others in the network, or else you're going to get this kind of game theory where users are trying to one up each other and get their transactions through first. So it's a lot where we're trying to take this new technology, which has these promises because custody is not centralized, but then you run into these other challenges because it's just not as easy as if you just had everything pooled together and could just credit one simple database.
Yeah, I like how you brought up that interesting fact, because for let's say for example Uniswap, I remember when I was trading on Uniswap and then seeing kind of like the front running bots, basically sending out one GUI more than you, so you can incur a little bit more slippage, and then it started going on to cross exchange to where it goes onto like Binance Smart Chain, and it started happening the same thing on PancakeSwap, and then now it's kind of like going onto like Matic network, but since their block time's a little faster, it's a little bit harder for front running bots to do, but still it's like all of these I would say just submitting one GUI or a little bit of gas extra for these transactions can really cause slippage for a lot of these platforms, especially for the users that don't know what front running bots are as well. And then kind of like leading into that as well, there's there are a lot of options between like layer 1 and kind of like layer 2. Like, how do you think about where to build your protocol? Like, it's kind of like what chain do you stay on? What kind of which ones do you bridge to? Which ones do you not bridge to? This is kind of like an open one for anyone to kind of pick up.
Yeah, so I can start. We obviously started on Ethereum in late 2017. It was kind of the only game in town. And my opinion on this has kind of evolved over time. In mid 2018, there were the first wave of Ethereum killers, as I would call it. A lot of chains with more performance, more TPS, and it looked like they'd be able to pick up a lot of that activity that was on Ethereum. And for whatever reason, they didn't execute well. It looked like the Ethereum was going to kind of just further bolster its lead and its kind of maintain that momentum that it had in terms of the network effect. What we've seen this second time around is chains realizing that the Ethereum network effect is largely due to what's called the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine, which basically is not the Ethereum network itself, like the miners and the consensus algorithm, but rather the way applications are built and operate on top of it. So that's things like Binance Smart Chain, which is an alternative layer 1, or Polygon, which is a layer 2 that interfaces with Ethereum. In both cases, a large driving factor in how they were able to get so much traction is they made it easy to deploy existing applications on top of them. So we had some of our developers working, and it took less than a week to get our current application up and running in those environments. So obviously that's attractive if you're trying to expand and get lower gas costs. On the other side, you have other chains that are coming with kind of a ground up approach. They're saying, while this network effects exists now, we think that actually designing a new framework that is potentially more performant in the long run will.
I think Alex might have disconnected.
Maybe I can just build on a little bit. Yeah, so I think our approach to layer 1 and layer 2 is everything we do is very much driven by the demand from our users, right? So recently we did a survey where we asked out the community what is like the next chains, or layer 2 or layer 1 you want to see get aggregated, and we had more than 50,000 who responded to that, and it turned out that layer 2 and high performance chains with low fees is very popular, at least around the DeFi users we have. So Polygon had a really big hit there because they obviously offer like speed, and I think it's very cost efficient. And Solana also was very popular due to the same reasons.
Yeah, I think the future with multi-chains, because we're a meta aggregator kind of, where so there's 1inch will aggregate that, there's Uniswap will aggregate that, there are other dexes where ZeroSwap will underline aggregate all of them. Now there comes a point where we need to decide. So we already have Ethereum and Binance Smart Chain on testnet. So now we're deciding on which other chain we're going to expand on. And then when we think of it, we think the first choice should be an EVM compatible chain. The reason is because if you want to understand how an EVM compatible chain works, Binance Smart Chain is a perfect example, because there are no barrier to entries from the user perspective. The user understand that the address remains the same, more or less the wallet remains the same, where you maintain your funds, the overall user story remains the same. So I think, if any other chain other than Ethereum comes into the ecosystem up to the level of adoption, I think it's going to be EVM compatible chains.
So welcome back, Alex.
Yeah, sorry for the cliffhanger. I don't know, internet died, so I'm on my phone now. So hopefully this does all right.
That happened. Yeah, so I was saying, Alex, that the future with all the chains that are coming up. So I believe, right, in 2017 EOS came, then this Cardano, but the reason they're not very successful is because I think Ethereum has a massive community and a lot of developers building around. So I think for a chain to be successful, it's important that, so consider Google, for example, right? There's Android developers, there's a platform, there are consumers. So all kind of users exist, all kind of consumers exist in the entire ecosystem, and Ethereum has a similar functionality. So I think one of the reasons for success of Binance Smart Chain is because it's a replica. But yeah, obviously there are security issues with the trilemma problem which Ethereum has, which Vitalik said, and which Binance Smart Chain has reduced the safety, and there are a couple of nodes in Binance, and on the side of safety and security, you see number of hacks happening. So I'm still skeptical on how even EVM compatible chain will scale up. But I have a lot of belief that layer 2 protocols will exist, and as I see Polygon performing really good in the recent time, that the reason is I think Polygon already has so many integrations going on with all the top DeFi protocols, which I don't see happening on Binance. It could be because lack of the developer ecosystem or support from the Binance side, but yes, layer 2 protocols for sure will exist.
Yeah, I think like for the different blockchain plays is like, layer 1, layer 2, or kind of whichever kind of like blockchain that they're building, is that they have to have these financial products, especially for traders, right? Because traders want to have lending platforms, borrowing platforms. They want to have dexes. They want to have, the lowest slippage, the
Yes.
best price oracle,
I think
having everything.
first and most important is liquidity. If the traders don't have liquidity, then they'll be like, why should I even access it? Another aspect which I believe for gas cost is if you consider you go and buy something on Costco or you're shopping on Amazon. So your cost of transaction doesn't vary, right? If you're buying something worth $1,000, you pay $1,000, right? As an end user, you never worry on what's the extra cost because there's network transaction and my order will not process. So I think that should eventually be solved in a way that businesses should start figuring out how to make revenue, and then they should start compensating on the gas cost. And that's what I am trying to do. So with zero swap, it's simple. So if you're staking X number of tokens, you get Y number of free transactions, plus you get to participate in the token launches happening, plus you get to earn some rewards. So it's gonna be a system where there's an algorithm which has 4 factors. One is how many transactions you make, how interactive you are towards zero swap protocol, how many token launches you participate in, and what you exactly do with the governance. So based on that, we'll decide how many free trades we can give to a user. And I think all these protocol, Compound, Maker, I think they can all experiment with at least start reimbursing the gas cost and start charging for using their protocol. Because at the end, even if layer 2 protocols come and the gas cost reduces, it still remains a headache, right? Which is not the case if you swap Visa or MasterCard. It's just a fixed fee that you pay. Like I pay around $100 yearly, and then all my transactions are at zero cost. Even if I'm buying a milk packet or I'm buying a car.
One of the last comments, and I think you see this with EVM compatible chains, if you have a low cost environment, people are going to come and use it and deploy applications and eat up that available space. You saw it with BSC where prices were rising. I know Matic has had some instability issues. It's just natural. If people can deploy stuff for cheap, they're going to come and use it and fill it up quickly. And so that's kind of a double-edged sword for EVM in the sense that it's great because you get apps early, but it also can cap out capacity. The other potential challenge is you get dev teams who didn't write the original code and maybe don't understand it, deploying the application, which can lead to a bunch of headaches because you've got these forks or copycats that are not well understood, and you get a bunch of frankly amateur kind of errors that arise from people who are maybe a little out of their league in terms of what they're trying to work with. So it can be both positive for growth, but also potential negative for users.
Yeah, like for what I did in the past was this is kind of like during DeFi summer, there's like 20, 30 different dexes that were opening up, and each one of them had liquidity issues. So whenever you committed a trade, whether it's like 1 DAI, 2 DAI, 10 DAI, 100 DAI, or a USDT, like you can actually place a slippage on one of the exchanges to have it to where you can place a bigger order on like a smaller amount. So if I wanted to, buy Ethereum for cheaper or buy, any other token for cheaper, I can then effectively trade it on another higher liquidity protocol, like let's say Uniswap, and then just arb that trade, And a lot of people were doing that in the beginning, and then front running bots came and everything. So it's like, I think a lot of users need to find, instead of like doing the whole, I would say, nitty gritty, finding out all these pools, doing it all manually, potentially getting front run by bots and everything. I think like aggregators and dexes are really needed in order to kind of really boost the way that the infrastructure that they have currently now. Even looking at like Uniswap, for example, Uniswap has so much liquidity and so much potential, but another thing that a lot of traders want to have is basically like an order book. Having an order book structure for them to be able to say, hey, look, what's the price? If I can set a limit order, if I can set up a stop loss and things like that to kind of execute. So it's like another topic I wanted to kind of like get across to as well is like, what do you guys think is like the better model? Like having an order book in order to have everything, be there in front of the screen, or having an AMM model to where the user just commits the trades and then the price fluctuates from that?
So obviously,
Yes.
from the trader perspective, yeah, go, Alexa.
Oh, sure. Thank you. I was just saying there's a lot of debate around order books versus AMMs. We're obviously biased with the order book exchange, but you can't deny the growth of the AMMs. So we think about this a lot. I think there's two areas that maybe aren't as discussed as much around the kind of the surge of AMMs. So everyone talks about the simplicity of the swap, which, as you said, works for many users, but doesn't work for a lot of others because they prefer different trading methods. I think the big things were anyone could launch a pool, meaning any new token that was coming out didn't have to go seek out exchange listings. They didn't have to find market makers. It just became, for long tail assets, the perfect place to start. You launch a pool, you get your community through liquidity mining scheme to add some funds to the pool, and you move on to the next problem. So I think that was, kind of the biggest thing that allowed for the growth. The second being that in a constrained execution environment like Ethereum, where gas costs are high, if you're trading on an order book DEX, each trade could hit multiple orders, which multiplies linearly the cost of that settlement. Whereas on a pool, regardless of the size, it's going to be one transaction. Now, we're starting to see that change with a lot of different execution environments. I think order book DEXs, you're going to start seeing a comeback because they give you just fundamentally more fidelity in terms of how you want to express pricing to the market. You can break an AMM down into a discrete set of orders and kind of reflect that within an order book. In last comment here, we're pretty excited about our innovation because we think historically people have thought of AMMs as tethered to the swap interface. They are kind of one and the same, and AMM means a swap, but really an AMM just means automated market maker. It's a style of market making using smart contracts and functions to guarantee the pricing that you're going to receive. We've incorporated that type of market making into our order book exchange, which we can do with a certainty and safety level that centralized exchanges cannot, because we use smart contract-based custody and settlement. So I think that's going to be another next step in this evolution, because you'll have the ease of launching a pool for new assets. Anyone can provide liquidity and earn market making fees, but those who want to trade in an order book style, you'll have the swap interface, but also the traditional order book where you can set limit orders, stop loss, etc. And for traders, it's going to execute against that best combination of pooled liquidity and limit order liquidity.
So I wanted to add here where, so I see like, if going forward, anybody wants to build an order book based exchange on top of an AMM at the back end, the problem is, how will you match things? So it's like, consider there are hundreds of orders wanting to buy at a particular price. Now there are bots, right? There are people who are controlling the entire market. I mean, how would you justify that a user who placed order earlier would be given the his order would be executed first, and not the person who's giving more gas price? So I think there are a lot of fundamental problems on how to build an order book in a decentralized way, and it's very difficult problem to solve technically. Consider Michael.
Yeah, so just to address that specific point, that's our hybrid approach, right? We have an off-chain matching engine that sequences transactions and guarantees that the first person to place an order gets the order. And there's kind of this tension between, as I mentioned earlier, if you want to have a better UX, you need to make some of those essentially trade-offs, right? We talked about the whole MEV and the idea of if you submit a transaction into the mempool and you're waiting for miners to pick it up, as you said, Ayushi, there is no certainty until that transaction is mined, right? Anyone can jump in front of you at any time. The miner can mine the block and decide, actually, I like that arbitrage, and drop in their own trade, right? So it's definitely a challenge, and I think it's just inherent to blockchains. And so we think that there's an option for an alternative model that makes some trade-offs in terms of the kind of complete decentralization. It does have an off-chain matching engine, but you get the same benefits in terms of non-custodial, on-chain settlement, transparency, automated market-making strategies, etc.
Okay.
Mathias, do you have any kind of like input on that as well? Kind of like the order book versus AMM model compared for like DEXs and aggregators?
Yeah, sure. So I think I don't know maybe the best way to put it again is that we kind of embrace them all because we are aggregator, right? So we work on the needs of the users, and I think our approach to it has been that we try to write documentation and educate the DeFi users and especially the new ones. What is AMA? What is order book? What is the difference? The risk? And then we also try to incorporate it into our terminals. So, for example, you can deselect them if you don't want to trade on them, or you can select them, or be very particular about like a certain DEX AMA logic you don't like, so you can deselect that. But I think our approach is more to be a bit more objective and then educate about it and really help them make their own best decision.
Yeah, and I think like that kind of like the order books versus the AMM, and also like for aggregators too, like, you know, aggregators really want to make sure that it's the easiest interface for everyone. You know, connecting to 5 DEXs, you know, it's really hard to have 5 screens up and say, hey, look, what's the best pricing for each one of them? You know, like you'll look around all day long, right? But then also for users, they want a very simple UI, simple UX. You know, they want it to be gasless. They want it to be very easy and user friendly. And I think like right now with like I would say even with the order books kind of issue as well, is that like even with order books with like centralized exchanges, like we also see like market makers like are able to push prices up and down. They can kind of like see different charting patterns and be able to say, hey, look, I'm gonna place my liquidity, or kind of like there's also hidden orders as well. So that's something that hasn't been too, I would say, embraced yet in decentralized finance, in terms of like DEX trading and kind of arbitraging, and also like aggregating as well, as like having these hidden orders like that exchanges can really have. And also another aspect as well is like having the compared to like the AMM model as well. It's like if you have an AMM model where it's like they can kind of see where every order is placed, they'll place a little bit above it, right? If there's going to be a really big order that's going to happen at Ethereum for 3,000, they're going to put it at 3,001. It's going to be kind of like the same type of typical thing. But I think for the AMM model, you're able to have that kind of like you're still able to kind of get that best pricing at that time, but you're also at the con of having front running bots be able to go into the mempool and say, hey, look, I'm going to front run this transaction and provide make them have slippage to already incur permanent loss. To kind of like finish off the panel, I kind of wanted to like go around and kind of like see if you guys have any final thoughts. Like what did you guys really want to get across to the audience in terms of like letting them understand more about us and everything? I'll go ahead first with Mathias.
Yes, so I think at least speaking from aggregator, I think like it's really interesting what we and other aggregators are trying to do. We are trying to make it more simple, trying to reach out to this slightly fragmented market. And then, as you mentioned before, right, you want to execute a trade, and in the end, you want to see what is all your options. This is the centralized exchange. This is the DEXs. This is maybe an opportunity for arbitrage, and then you can make your own choices on that. So I think like my final thoughts is that I think DeFi users, they should try to go in and try to use an aggregator and then see how you can really maximize your trading. You can get better prices, better leverage, and if you really study it, you will also be able to see arbitrage opportunities, especially between DeFi and CeFi.
Excellent. Ayushi as well?
Yeah, so I'll just say to all the users of decentralized finance that, if you like Uniswap, if you like PancakeSwap, and if you like trading on decentralized exchanges, what ZeroSwap is building in a very simple language, I'm just enhancing the user experience. So I'm trying to build, an airport taxi in 2000 versus Uber in 2020, right? So your overall improvement, your overall experience of trading on a decentralized exchange will improve once you come to ZeroSwap. First, you'll find all the DEXs at one place. Plus, you don't have to pay any fee to trade. So if your order gets executed at Uniswap, you got to pay fee only to Uniswap, not to ZeroSwap, because ZeroSwap doesn't charge any fee. Plus, you don't need to pay any gas cost, and you get to access all the EVM compatible chain DEXs. Further, we'll also expand to non-EVM compatible chains, but this is what we have in pipeline right now. So it's going to be very simple, easy, and Uniswap already has a product market fit. You understand how decentralized exchanges work, and we'll just give you a better version of it.
Excellent. Thank you. And also Alex as well. Any kind of like final thoughts and final conclusions?
I'm just stoked that DEXs are becoming a thing. I've been following this, like I said, since 2016. And you thought for a while that there was, 2018 was supposed to be the year of the DEX and it didn't materialize. It's really at odds that people's first experience with crypto is to deposit their funds to a centralized intermediary and trade without ever actually holding crypto. It's just not in the ethos of the space. I don't believe that everyone will want to or will eventually self-custody, but it's about having that option, building systems where individuals can interface with giant custodians and everything in between, smart contract-based multi-sig wallets, et cetera, and everyone's able to choose their own security preferences and kind of risk tolerance. So we're seeing that being built out. You've heard a lot of different options. I'm just excited for where the space is going.
Excellent. And yeah, so like from this panel, it's a lot of great, a lot of great companies that are building a lot in this space. And I even told a lot of my kind of like people that kind of follow me or kind of like ask questions is that I believe 2021 is the year of the way to kind of bridge that liquidity gap between different exchanges and different decentralized exchanges and be able to find a aggregator or find a centralized exchange that can really bring that slippage in compared to like centralized exchanges. Like even the liquidity between centralized exchanges right now are still very fragmented, right? You have ecosystems that are really separated by themselves. And if you look at like the DEX side as well, it's like DEXs have individual liquidity as well. So it's like in order to kind of tap into all of these pools, you really want to find a way to really be able to bridge your transactions and then be able to aggregate all of them. Or if you're going to like a DEX model as well, it's like you want to have these features for these users so that you can have them on your platform. Having a way for them to have an order book, being able to say, hey, look, I don't want to go on Uniswap because there's no order book. They're not used to it. It's a really great thing that you guys are building really well in the space. And thank you guys so much for joining in the panel today. And hope for the rest of the audience, hope you guys enjoy the rest of DeFi Summit.